right, guys, welcome back. As I stated in my 2022 farewell video from several months ago, I kind of mentioned that 2023 would be the year where I'm just going to mainly acquire as many of these parts that I need for both projects as I can. As you guys can tell, I have a coupe that's in the works right now, and also eventually a Capri, 1980 Capri. And with just the times that we're in right now, with the scarcity of raw materials and parts and whatnot, that's kind of what made me go that route for 2023. And one of the latest acquisitions that I've made here has been a early gen TKO transmission, which is kind of my favorite. Of course, I would love to have a newer TKX, but when you come across a deal that's pretty reasonable and in good shape, and willing to take a chance on it, I just jump on them. So I went ahead and found one locally, and went out of state to get it, and came back. And one thing that I do want to mention is, everybody's different when it comes to these cars. Some people will buy used transmissions and used engines and so on and so forth, and they'll go ahead and run them and see what they have. And there's nothing wrong with that. My personal experience is I've been burned before doing that or making those kinds of purchases. Case in point, the last transmission that I bought a couple years ago, and I have a video and I'll leave it in the description below, but it's a full rebuild on an early gen TKO as well. And even though I got that transmission for a really good deal in a way, the price was pretty low, but at least the previous owner told me that there were issues with it. So I sort of knew what I was getting into. I just didn't think it'd be to the extent that it was. But this one I just acquired a couple weeks ago seems to be okay. And I want to go through it and just verify that everything's okay. And that's kind of the point that I was alluding to earlier, is that there's nothing wrong with just throwing something in that you got used and running it. Just know that the risk that you take is that you could be reworking the whole thing that you bought, whether it's a short block or a transmission or a rear end or what have you. I, for one, try to be as efficient as possible, and that's just because it's the type of person I am. If I personally haven't been through an engine, transmission, rear end, you name it, if I haven't been through it, just because I have been burned in the past, it kind of I have a hard time trusting it. And also, my time is very valuable to me. I have a full-time job and I work a lot of overtime as well. So if I were to just throw a transmission in and hope for the best, and if it didn't work out, well, that's just another weekend, another week I'd have to have the car down or what have you to fix things. And I always try to do things right from the get-go. But again, that's just how I am. Everybody has their their preferences. But going back to the transmission, this isn't really going to be a detailed how-to of how to go through a Tremec, but what it will do is just kind of guide the steps that I took in tearing down the transmission and rebuilding it. So stick around and hope you enjoy. All right, guys. Well, I lucked out on this one. Really, the only thing that the transmission needed was just some shift fork pads and a couple of O-rings for the shift rails. In total, I may have had probably 30 bucks in just kind of maintenance issues or maintenance parts for the transmission. So I lucked out on this one. So sometimes you do score, and this was one of those times. One thing, as you saw earlier on, the counter shaft is actually welded. A lot of these TKOs, the counter shaft is actually a two-piece shaft. They have been known to separate. I haven't ever had that problem before, but the cool thing that that was done, as you can see, is it was TIG welded together. So I find that a net positive. So, you know, I'm pretty happy with it overall. Everything went together the exact same way. All the bearings were reused, and obviously I used the factory style anaerobic red gel sealant, which is what Tremec uses from the factory to seal it up. Be forewarned if you use a silicone as far as where the case and the tail shaft mate together, and also on the throwout bearing retainer. If you use silicone there, just be warned that sometimes the silicone won't fully cure and won't dry. So you don't want that going in your gearbox, and that's the reason, one of the reasons why Tremec uses the anaerobic gel sealant. But yeah, guys, it was a win today, so pretty happy with it. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed it. You know, obviously the Tremec TKXs are the latest and greatest, and those are the transmissions to have, no doubt. However, if you guys do run across a 3550, if you know that matches your power level, or preferably a TKO, an early gen one, or even a 500, 600, they're still pretty good transmissions. You know, especially if you can get it for a reasonable price, and if you go through it and there's nothing wrong with it, definitely a good transmission. Do they shift as well as a new TKX? No, not really. There's some things that you can do to a 3550 and a TKO series to help the transmission shift better, but you really can't beat some of the later technology in the blocker rings and the synchronizers and so on and so forth that's out there now. So I for one highly recommend them. The only issue now is because those transmissions are discontinued, if you do run across one and it needs a part here or there, just know that you may have some trouble acquiring some of the pieces for these transmissions, because they are getting a little scarce, even the leftover NOS parts or what have you. So but I highly recommend them, guys. I kind of grew up with the 3550 TKOs. I mean, I've had them ever since I started tinkering on these cars back in like 99. They were just always the ones to go to. We were always breaking T5s. I'm not sure if Astro is still around. Astro A5 and G-Force. I do need to do some research to see if those guys are still around, but those are good cases too, or good transmissions. They are rated for some high torque. I personally would question the strength of a T5 case, even though the internals are really good if you go that route. I think G-Force has their own case, so I'd probably go that route if you go, you know, if you want to do something like that. But if you were to build an upgraded T5, just know that I for one feel that the case would be really stressed if you were to put, you know, up to 600 foot-pounds of torque on it. But you know, that's why I go with the you know, with the TKOs. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for some more, you know, short how-tos, and we'll take it from there. Take care.